Hey woo lovers, Lee from straightwoo.com here with another Ask Me Anything, your astrology questions answered by moi. So today we have a good one that I've been really excited about answering because as soon as I got it, I was like, God, this is one of the most popular things that we get as astrologers, professional astrologers, um, in the inbox. You know, people read stuff online, they get worried. And the question is, can I get married during Mercury retrograde? Or is it okay, or should I get married during a Mercury retrograde? Long story short, for those that are too long, didn't watch, yeah, you can get married during Mercury retrograde. It's not a big deal. There are so many layers to this, so I hope I do this in a way that's clear and clean enough to follow. But the first thing is to think about why you're asking the question, and that will change my answer slightly. So let's say you are really concerned about having a great wedding day. You are investing probably a lot of time, money, and energy in this. You want to have a really great, fun wedding for your family and friends. You are obviously thinking you might only be doing it the one time. If you got Jupiter in the seventh, you're going to do it another time, but that's another thing. Or likely to do it another time, unless it's like the most perfect, amazing Jupiter ever in a daytime chart. So you're worried about the wedding day itself and how that unfolds and what kind of party you get to put on. If that is your concern, Mercury retrograde will be could pose logistic or organizational frustration, delays, things like that. I would say check and double check everything during a Mercury retrograde wedding. Is it the invitations go off late? Is it that people that said that they were going to come didn't, and vice versa? Does the cake come and it's a bit wrong? Do the flowers that you ordered suddenly go instantly out of stock for God knows what reason? All those things are very possible during Mercury retrograde anyway. Technology in particular, travel in particular. So if you were doing like a destination wedding and having 200 and 300 people come and fly into town for some kind of thing, I would be not wary, but I would again think about it. So like if you were going to do like a 3-day event, you might have people fly in the day before, you know what I mean? Things like that so that you've got a bit of buffer on some of the things that could very possibly go wrong. I wouldn't ship your wedding dress. I wouldn't ship your bridesmaid dresses. I wouldn't, I mean, I know people are going like, why would you? But some people do and some people have to, or there's lots of different things that happen. So I would just be way more intent on nailing the details if I was going to get married during Mercury retrograde. That's for this first intent of the question. The second intent, that's usually the most popular one, is am I going to doom my marriage to failure if I get married during Mercury retrograde? Is getting married under Mercury retrograde somehow an auspicious totem for imminent, again, failure or breakdown in the marriage? Typically, Mercury retrograde, and just to put it out there for people that don't know or who are somewhat new to astrology, planets generally move in a very clean direction. And at some point, certain planets, all except for Sun and Moon, will seem to stand still in the sky. That's called the station retrograde, and then move backwards, which is the retrograde itself. And this was seen as being problematic or that things were going awry. It was an ominous happening to ancient astrologers who were watching this. They considered that planet weakened and not as able to bring about its promise as a planet. So Mercury handles communication, trade, hence where we get words like commerce, merchant. Uh, Parts of healing, can have parts of healing involved in it. Travel is a big one. He was often associated with the crossroads and traveling and the safeties of journeys. So those are kind of the big ones. Now we also think about technology and in modern day world, things that didn't exist at that time when astrologers were concretizing the meanings of planets. So that's what astrology or Mercury rules in astrology, and hence when Mercury goes retrograde, those things often get awry. The message never arrives, or the wrong message gets received or sent. Our shipment goes missing. Tech stuff goes on the fritz. We get delayed in our flight. Our bag goes missing. That kind of stuff. That's the normal Mercury retrograde stuff. Mercury also does, as part of trade, more so, deal with contracts and contractual agreements between people. Hence why often people will say, don't get married during a Mercury retrograde because things won't turn out as you wish, because you are effectively signing a contract between two people, husband and husband, wife and wife, whatever it is. And therefore, that contract is going to be null and void, or it's going to be problematic, or it's not going to go as hoped. On one hand, yes, there is the contractual element, but Mercury is not a planet of love, never has been, never will be. So on one hand, I always look at Mercury retrograde as no big problem for a wedding chart, because it's not, it's probably going to more color and tone or add texture to the day itself. Again, I would expect mishaps. I expect logistic or organizational stuff to come up, things to go missing. But then my serious advice as an astrologer to you, if that is your situation, would be just to go with the flow a little bit and relax a bit. Know that these things are going to happen and don't attach to it. That's just going to be the medicine. The medicine is going to be detachment and ease as you go into a wedding season, particularly this 2018 wedding season, which had Mars retrograde from June 26th to August 26th, and then Mercury retrograde in Leo. Can't remember the dates, but it just ended August 19th, so 3 weeks prior to that, end of July. So here we are. It's peak wedding season in Western Europe, North America, most of the Western world, and many people will have been married under Mars and or Mercury retrogrades. So yeah, getting back to the point, Mercury retrograde mishaps, sure, but you can't. Okay, this gets technical now, but sometimes there's a branch of astrology called electional astrology, which is the idea that I can elect and choose a time that's best to get married, launch my business, take very important decisions or changes in my life. And while I respect that branch of astrology, I say, and will never be convinced otherwise, that you can elect happiness. Because if we could elect happiness, we wouldn't be astrologers, we'd be fucking millionaires. It's just not sensible. What you can elect is a good day for a good wedding. That will not mean a good marriage. So that's the crux of what I want to get at here, is that some people ask about Mercury retrograde in a wedding because they're concerned about the wedding day. That's a very reasonable question, and I hope that I've answered that sufficiently. If, however, the underpinning idea or fear is, am I dooming my marriage? Is this a karmically bad, fated, charged day for bad marriage vibes that are going to plague me for the rest of my marriage? No. Because the marriage chart, the chart of the date, time, and place you are married, will describe undeniably the day that you get married and how that feels and how it unfolds and what the general feel is on the day. It will not describe and cannot describe the unfolding of a relationship over a year, 5 years, 50 years. Impossible. That is not possible from an electional chart for a wedding. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I've seen 1 million of them. And I'm a severe pragmatist when it comes to astrological techniques. I will try anything and I'm open to anything, but it's got to bloody work. And if I cannot find sufficient evidence for something being applicable in my chart, my friend's chart, my family's chart, my client's charts, then I dismiss it. So the chart of the wedding will not dictate the marriage. That's important to know. If you want to know about your marriage, don't look at the wedding chart. You can have the most dreamiest, amazing wedding chart, which will give you a dreamy, amazing wedding day. Undoubtedly. If you've got like Venus conjunct Neptune or Venus trine Neptune or Venus and Jupiter making lovely contacts, there's going to be an amazing vibe to that wedding day, and you will forever remember it as a beautiful moment in time. But if you want to get down to brass tacks, marriage, what makes marriage work or not work from the astrological perspective? Synastry. Synastry is the art of looking at two charts and how they interact. There's many ways to do this. We can put one chart in the center and the other one around it and kind of like see how the contacts look. We can take essentially two charts and almost like shake them up in a box and see what new baby would be born. It's called a composite chart. There's a couple different ways of making those. And then the other thing is also too, transits, because even if these charts agree pretty well, maybe chart A is headed in a certain direction and chart B is headed in another. Maybe you dovetail for a long time. And there's there's a sense and a patch of time where values are more closely aligned, and then there's a time where things split off a little bit more. That's always possible. But if you're worried about your marriage or worried about Mercury retrograde, getting married, don't be. I'm like, if you have to make a bouquet out of Mars, Venus, and Mercury retrograde, take it down the aisle, girlfriend, and get married. Whatever day you choose is going to be the right day for you. Astrology should not impinge upon you. It should not be something that's like a rod for your back or, a source of misery. It should be something that you can use to get better framework or perspective on something or deeper insight into spaces of life where we may have limited perspective and insight. So my whole thing is, if you want to do a Synastry reading with your partner, I highly recommend you to do it with a professional astrologer who does Synastry readings. Do it before you get married, to kind of set the stage for what you guys are walking into. To give it as a gift for friends. Do it as your 1 year anniversary. I think it's a cute thing as a 1 year anniversary because it's paper the first year, right? And at least in a lot of Western traditions, paper is the first anniversary gift you give to somebody, and you could like print off a Synastry chart and do something like that. It's kind of like the nominal paper gift. And it can just give you a good idea of how you guys work together and how you might best work together, and somewhere, also where you're going to butt heads. But knowing that stuff in advance and having the consciousness and awareness of it makes all the difference, and Mercury retrograde does not. So do not worry if you are one of the people that got married this summer in Mars and or Mercury retrograde. Other summers it might be Venus, there's lots of stuff going on here that you can look at. But a wedding chart, to me, and from my opinion and my experience, gleaned over years of looking at charts for people, is that the wedding chart undoubtedly shows what the wedding itself feels like, the day and the festivities, and how it again, that like tone and texture of how it is for you and your friends and family to celebrate this wonderful event. But I've almost never seen, and I do not think there is correlation between a wedding chart, the day and time, place you're married, and the unfolding of a marriage. Those are two separate things. And to conflate them and to worry that one bad astrological transit would doom the entirety of your marriage. Don't, there is stuff out there that is online. People say don't sign contracts, don't get married during Mercury or any retrogrades for that matter. I'm here to say no. I don't really believe that. I think if you want to get serious about your marriage, the place you go is Synastry and the study of self and other, and the projections you call up in one another, the unconscious stuff that you call up in one another, and that is where you invest your time and energy in order to know that your marriage is going to unfold in the right way. So long as always, hope this was useful though. If you ever had thoughts or questions about getting married during Mercury retrograde, here you are. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you have a different opinion, if you've had experience of this, or of course, to subscribe if you like the videos. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.